You are watching us live here at Humanist TV Africa. Humanist TV Africa is a registered charity under the name of Humanist Media Africa. We are registered to do work, especially online, work that generally is given less attention by many social media platforms. So, as a human rights organization, and of course, as an advocacy a powerhouse, we are here to empower each other, to learn from you, to learn from us, and of course, to sharpen each other, to help each other get out of poverty, get to know things that we must know. My name is Katum Mukasa, and in the studio is Dennis Bongole to do the production. And of course, every Saturday we have experts. Experts are activists, advocates, especially for consumers, who defends the right of consumers. These are the experts that we host every Saturday from Consent Uganda and other organizations to come here and empower us and share with us so that our viewers can be able to benefit from their expertise. I want to thank so much our teams in Ghana, our teams in Nigeria, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone for sharing our live shows on Facebook. I want to thank you so much. Of course, we have had some technical glitches through our YouTube channel, but we shall be able to overcome that. I want to thank you so much for always sharing our shows, and I want to continue encouraging you to please, once you watch it, once you watch us on Facebook, please go ahead and subscribe. Find us again on our YouTube channel. You are going to be seeing our link. It will be right there. Our telephone number and our WhatsApp numbers are going to be right there on your screen, as our producers will be able to put them right there. So today, we are going to be continuing handling issues to do with consumer activism and consumer rights. We are handling the biggest animal in the house. We are talking about the financial service sector, stakeholders and their core mandates in service. We're looking at the providers and consumer protection. So we're looking at financial service sector. It's a big thing. We'll be talking about the tyranny of banks, the tyranny of people handling money. In Africa today, we have what we call mobile money services. How many people are losing money in mobile money services? What happens to your money if you lose your phone? What happens to your money if you died and the money remained on the account of your mobile line? What would happen to that money? How much money is lost in between? I was looking at the reports shared by Mr. Chimera, and of course doing some other research, and it was indicating that we have lost people in Uganda. By 2021, they had lost over 4 million US dollars in mobile money transactions and, of course, bank fraud. Because mobile money and bank, they are all in the banking sector. Yet, surprisingly, mobile money is not regulated properly until recently. It began in 2009, but until recently, it hasn't been regulated properly. Even now, as we talk, the law governing mobile money in Uganda is shaky. I want to welcome the experts to give us more of these insights. Having given that background, I want to welcome Mr. Kimera Henry. Mr. Kimera Henry is our expert in-house. Please, you're most welcome, Mr. Kimera, and have a greeting to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Kato and Dennis, and all the partners, all the different studios on the African continent, plus the global world. We are always honored to be with you and to share with you. And it is a great pleasure that we are once again coming on our second in the series with regards to digital finance, but looking at the widest financial services and looking at issues to do with consumers. I would like to, on the onset, to say last week we started with, first in the series, we looked at our linking it to consumer rights and consumer responsibilities, and also bringing in risks and looking at the different players, looking at digital finance in its different avenues, where we find it is in banking, it is in insurance, it is in health, it is in education, it is in the food sector, and even in transport.
Yes, there, Mr. Chimera, we are losing him. A bit of a technical glitch. Remember, you are watching us live. Ours are live shows. We are not edited, we are not recorded. These are live shows. So we shall be back with Mr. Chimera once the network has stabilized. But I was saying, as Mr. Chimera was digging in, that we are going to be looking at the financial sector. We are looking at the banks. We are looking at mobile money sector. We are looking at how much money, especially in Africa, is being lost through fraud, through online fraud. We call it cybercrime. How much money is being lost? What are the regulations in place? Who are the providers? What are they talking about? The issues that do with cybercrime, internet banking. How safe is our money? How aware are the consumers? Remember, this program is basically to empower the consumers. We are here to talk about consumer rights, consumer protection. Who are the bankers? Who are the consumers? How are the bankers protecting the consumers? But who are the regulators of this banking sector? Service providers. So we look at the providers, we look at the consumers, but also we look at the awareness. Mr. Chimera is back. Please continue from where you stopped.
Thank you very much. As I was telling you, or as I was sharing with you consumers, the genesis on how we rolled last week, I was giving you that digital finance has got a vertical and horizontal kind of operating environment. And you'll find that it is in every aspect of humanity. Like I was saying, it is in the banking, the money aspects, it is in the food sector, it is in the education sector, it is in insurance, it is in transport, it is in entirely everything that we consumers engage in and consumers we dearly go to. So the digital finance, like we said last week, has got positives and negatives. And one of the aspects that it has led currently due to easy access with consumers accessing it, it has increased some of the risks. And number of the risks, apart from fraud, is consumer indebtedness. Consumers continuously borrow differently using borrowing from the national service providers or mobile providers, borrowing from using apps that now they are accessing easily. Traditionally, consumers hardly accessed money, but with digital finance or the digital infrastructure, consumers now can easily access finance. You will appreciate, consumers, that we are a very powerful force, that we easily bring change. But as we bring change, we need to look at how that change and new innovations need to be safe for us, and how we can drive the digital finance through responsible actions for the systems to grow, to protect our privacy, and also change the behavior to bring a difference so that the digital finance is fair for us and we use it responsibly. We'll appreciate that with the acceleration of technology innovations, there is quite a great need now to focus on respective fundamentals. And that's why we are doing these programs with Humanist TV. The different fundamentals that we need to look at spread in different angles. You look that we need to empower consumers, and consumer empowerment is paramount from a social perspective, from a political, economic, legal, and technological aspects. As we are looking at all this, what are the alternatives that we can tell the consumers as we sensitize them to be responsible? So as we look at the successful approach of consumer awareness, which is very key, this will lead to mutual benefit with the digital ecosystem in different aspects. When you look at digital finance, It affects us in different angles. So today, we would like, having gone through the rights and responsibilities last week, today we will focus a lot on the risks and how best they are affecting. And we are going to use Uganda as an example, because the clips we are going to share are more of the Uganda case study, but you'll appreciate these case studies are affecting many other, whether in Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas. They are all affected in one way or another, where the deep fakes are active in the Internet of Things, where there is taking on swapping your identity, coming into your privacy. So that makes it something very important. So today we are going to look at the risks, and we are using Uganda as a case study to advocate for more regulatory and consumer protection frameworks. And also, as we'll call to the duty bearers to protect us, then we would wish to see even the businesses putting in place mechanisms to protect us, and also triggering awareness and also calling upon us consumers to act responsibly. Thank you very much, Kato, and our viewers, and also part of the team, so that we can go deep now into different aspects. As Kato might direct, we can go in for the first case study.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Chimera, for that insight. Today, it's a very interesting show. Remember, it's a big thing. The financial sector is a big thing. We're talking about banks, we're talking about cooperative societies, we're talking about mobile money, banking, we're talking about so much more. There are pyramid saving schemes. All these are all these are financial service sector issues. Let us look at some of the videos we prepared for the show. Our producer, Dennis Bong, will be able to show some of these videos and shall be able to give our analysis after these videos. Take a look.
Wednesday evening, Patience Atuhaire, whose real name shall be concealed in compliance with the request after she reconsidered the same, was fleeced of 1.6 million shillings in a telephone fraud. Coincidentally, she had just received the money from one of her children when the scammers called her to carry out their scheme.
My son, who lives in Saudi Arabia, sent the money to help me address some challenges.
Earlier, purported telecom operator had called her, threatening to switch off her phone, which left her vulnerable to manipulation, as she believed it to be a legitimate call for genuine help.
I trusted them because MTN had previously asked me to register once more, and I did it. When they called me back for a second time, I had no doubt. After all, the SIM wasn't previously registered under my name.
She sent the money in 2 phases, as the fraudsters still had the courage to manipulate her to take whatever was left in the account.
They gave me 2 numbers to write down. However, when I cross-checked, I found out that the first number withdrew money from my phone. Then the same thing happened with the second number.
The money was sent to an Airtel SIM instead of the MTN number the imposter called on. The reason why the scammer directed the money to be sent to a different SIM number can be explained by another attempt by a fraudster to also manipulate me. A day before Atuhaire was conned, I too received a call from a lady imposter who used an MTN number 0780249282. Soon after threatening that my number would be switched off within 30 minutes for failure to update personal record with the operator, she offered to help sort it out.
Right, my brother. Do you know how to check your registration status?
I know maybe you need to direct me on how to do that.
All right, don't worry. So right now, you're going to dial start first to the service, the new service operation. You press *132#.
I chose to be loyal in order to understand the trick. The call lasted several minutes. The help required entering certain codes into personal mobile phone, and even as I pretended to do so, the imposter could tell that I had not complied.
You're using a smartphone, button phone.
No, button phone.
If it is a button phone, do what I'm telling you. Don't write it down, because we are on time. We will not wait for you to do it, yeah? Okay, you press star with me, star.
Uh-huh.
Are you done with the star?
Yes, I'm dialing star.
1,
1,
3,
3,
2#.
2#.
You're writing, you're not dialing.
The call ended with an abuse, certainly after the telephone operator who called me noticed that I was pulling her leg.
You press on the very phone you're speaking to, please.
Okay, you said you're Madam who?
You're very stupid. Come to the service center, idiot.
We declined to enter the digits, missing out on us the opportunity to learn more about the tricks, but we were keen not to compromise personal gadget. The first attempt to identify the name behind the call fell flat.
At this moment, I do not know the person who was behind the call, and as such, I'm going to try to send the person the money generously on mobile money to try to see under which names is the SIM card registered.
A generous decision to send money to the imposter would have provided the name on which the SIM is registered, but alas, the feedback message indicated it was not registered for the transaction. Certainly, it is the primary reason Atuhaire was instructed to send the money to another number that the fraudster could easily withdraw from. Another generous attempt was to purchase airtime for this telephone operator, and boom, it was registered under the names of Israel Evans Bossa, which should be a male's name, yet the person behind the call was a lady. Under the circumstance, it is difficult to tell with certainty whether the SIM was deliberately registered under the names for purposes of defrauding unsuspecting members of the public, used illegally from a snatched phone. The national identification number NIN for registration of the SIM was obtained from a lost national ID, or the record may have been obtained from one of those places personal information is required. The communications sector regulator highlights all of the above as possibilities.
We know that there are some vulnerabilities in the SIM card registration and activation process, whereby when you go to buy a SIM card, someone can trick you into entering your biometrics more than once.
Government in 2017 undertook mandatory registration of SIM cards with personal details, primarily to curb down on crimes committed with the aid of mobile phones. The exercise is a mandatory requirement to date. But communications regulator says only little can be done to stop the fraudsters.
We've gone countrywide to try and educate people. But even as we educate the public, even the Bafede listening to the same message and update their tricks.
The lockdown is blamed for fueling the vice.
And as a result of the increased usage, we also had an increase in the people out there who were trying to manipulate the increased usage.
Concern. Over the last few months, the incidence of fraud, mobile money fraud, has increased significantly. Okay, you see, as MTN, we have built a very secured mobile money platform. Okay, what we try to do is, whether it's the USSD, whether it's USSD string, whether it's the mobile money app, we have built enough protections for customers.
Our desire to understand the magnitude of the problem based on reported cases failed as police directed that this shall be reflected on the yet-to-be-released annual crimes report.
Currently, we have 17 ongoing cases, 11 of which are before the courts, and 6 of which are still in the investigative process.
The communications regulator, Uganda Communications Commission, advises on the need to be vigilant and cautious whenever one is using electronic services, since all they can do at the moment to protect them is mass sensitization against the vice. What this means is that the illiterate and the elderly will remain vulnerable at this time because the experts admit that the fraudsters are always ahead of them. Jackson Onyango, reporting for NTV.
Thank you so much, Jackson Onyango. That is a good one from NTV Uganda. That was a courtesy video from NTV Uganda. But you can see, if you watch it carefully, you'll see the struggles many people in Africa go through, losing millions of money to scammers, online scammers. It's quite absurd. And I want to thank so much, Mr. Kimera, for sharing this video. Now, for the updates of our viewers, Uganda began mobile money banking in 2009. And surprisingly, there was no law to regulate mobile money banking until 2020. Now you can imagine, for over a decade, these people were handling billions of money, millions of US dollar equivalent in cash. In fact, at one point, mobile money sector was rivaling with banking sector, the old mainstream banking sector. And many banks became ineffective. Up to now, many banks are no longer operating very well because of mobile money transactions. It becomes so easy to use my phone to transact than going to a bank. Now, but you can imagine, these people, Airtel, MTN, were conducting business in Uganda without a valid law, without an enabling act. Then UCC, Uganda Communication Commission, came in to regulate a bit, but again, it was not effective. Katuntu, Abdul Katuntu, a senior lawyer, went to court in 2012 to challenge this irregularity, to ask questions. Why should people manage funds? These are, first of all, foreign companies. MTN Uganda, Airtel Uganda, they are owned by foreigners. They are here managing billions of money each day, earning profits. People die without claiming their money. Now, if I had my money on my SIM card in Uganda and I left it there and I disappear, where does the money go? So people are asking questions. Katuntu went to court in 2012, but still was not successful. Now you can imagine, it took how many years? Over 10 years, that in 2020 an act is made. But again, it's not even effective. Until recently, this year, April this year, they're talking about a regulation, because now Bank of Uganda regulates directly the mobile money sector. Now, having said that, look at the fraud. Bank of Uganda says from April this year that to transact 1 million shillings and above, you must go with your national ID, national identity card, to withdraw 1 million and above. But how many Ugandans basically follow this transaction, follow this rule or regulation? How many mobile money subscribers will insist for you to provide a national ID? Because they must keep a copy. Now, look what this lady in the scenario I've shared, Mr. Kimera. A lady getting money from the son to take care of herself, and then the scammers, the scammers take all the 3 millions. And by the way, we are losing $4 million in mobile money scamming. That's too much money. So how many people are getting enriched out of stealing from the unsuspecting consumers? So Consumer Consent Uganda, Mr. Kimera here, is an advocate for consumer rights. We don't normally have these advocates. He's here to share with us these insights, but also give us in-depth guidelines on how to protect our consumers from being scammed. Mr. Kimera, over to you. Thanks so much for the video, and let me hear your analysis on the matter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kato and viewers. The mobile money sector as part of the digital finance family has continuously been growing. All that started differently with the guidelines on mobile money transaction. Eventually in 2022, we got National Payment Systems Act, where the aspects to do with mobile money eventually left the telecoms and opened up different players in the sector where you now have mobile money companies, all that are previously were telecoms. So, and then, though they're still using the infrastructure of the same telecoms, but they are different franchise or different businesses. So with the National Payment Systems Act in place, there are regulations, there are consumer protection regulations. But we will appreciate that with the fast growing innovations in technology, challenges continuously come in. And previously it was small, now they are nearly all consumers with mobile phones, whether they are smart or not smart, are accessing the digital finances from relatives, from businesses, from social aspects, doing payments and so forth. We will appreciate that digital financing has increased financial inclusivity for the different categories of consumers, from consumers who are wealthy, less wealthy, disadvantaged, vulnerable, all those sections of consumers are now in the financial services environment. And all this brings its in different aspects. So the digital ecosystem has got mutual benefits, has got scrupulous players, but then the unscrupulous tend to take advantage of the say weak or lack of awareness and failure to implement some of the mechanisms. So this brings up challenges, and the benefits that will have come out to increased financial inclusion end up making consumers more vulnerable, making businesses more vulnerable, making even the duty bearers also vulnerable. The videos are quite old, but when you look at what is there currently, at Consent we do harvest consumer complaints, but a number of the complaints, majority of the complaints in regards to communication and financial services are mainly with fraud, poor networks, poor infrastructure, poor customer. All this leads to consumer loss of trust and confidence in the system. So something that would be there to serve consumers as an alternative, a better choice to meet their needs, is weakened by the unscrupulous. So this is the need, where we need to continuously engage, do sensitization, make consumers aware, go on with advocating with the authorities when we share some of the complaints, so that the authorities look at mitigation measures. And this is where we will need the consumers globally to continuously complain, because mechanisms to address the deep fraud that is going on needs to have global frameworks, having regional or even national frameworks as at country level, so that they have got elements to communicate with regards to the international dispensation. You'll find that if I use the example of Uganda, we have got the national payment systems with the different regulations and aspects of consumer protection. Effectively implemented, can address a number of consumer complaints. Those are added on by sector regulations and standards. The National Bureau of Standards in Uganda adopts some of the international standards for usage at locally. We have more than 25 standards that relate to financial services, which bring in the digital finance. You will find that the insurance sector also has got elements that will need to be implemented, to be put in place, so that there is effectiveness there. So all this brings in the aspect that needs concerted efforts. All players need to play their role, like earlier mentioned, that the duty bearers need to play their role and to make sure that their major role that needs to be played comes in different aspects, putting the policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks in place, then making coordination mechanisms to see to it that they safeguard the different players in the digital finance or in the financial services sector. And one of those coordinations and aspects that need coordination would be to sensitize the consumers so that they know of their rights and responsibility, so that they act and do transact in the financial environment with from an informed position. Then other aspects that need to be put in place as infrastructure to address all these major complaints is mechanisms to do investigations, to monitor, to do surveillance, not only to wait for consumers to complain, but you'll find, like in the video, some of the information is that many victims, like in banks, do not complain, but they just talk of glitches. But many consumers So what is very key is to have the frameworks in place, to have coordination with the different sector players to come together and make sure that regulations, safeguards that are in their respective sectors are implemented to safeguard.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chimera. Right there. We will be back to continue with that now. Mr. Dennis, let us have the next video to show us what's going on, especially when it comes to consumer fraud and consumer services in Uganda. Today we look at Uganda as a case study. Dennis, let us have that second video, and then we'll continue with our show.
Service today fairly competes with the banking sector in handling fairly larger volumes of transactions, with a monthly portfolio running in hundreds of billions of shillings. While this is the case, the sector today remains in a legal vacuum, which audit experts say offers fertile ground for the entrenchment of financial vices like fraud, which has already been meted out at some companies.
So what these people do when I come and give you my money, so instead of you sending it directly to the client, to the person I want the money to go to, you're going to send it to another agent. So another agent asks for claims a commission on that. He sends it to another agent who claims a commission on that, and then finally that last agent sends it to the final recipient. This is why you have seen in the press that people have written about one of the telecom companies having lost billions of shillings. In fact, information reveals that that company lost over something like 20 to 30 billion Uganda shillings. Now that is around $1 billion.
The problem is also grounded in the capacity challenges faced by the regulators and the telecom companies to ably audit the mobile money transfer system and prevail over any possible fraud attempts.
I would say the regulator has no internal capacity to independently enter into the telecom system, get data, and independently verify and see whether what they are saying is correct. You know there is a power problem in Uganda. Most of the time, masts are powered by electricity. So even there is no that proper synchronization because masts are in remote places.
As the money service continually becomes part of our day-to-day lives, and indeed an integral part of the economy, it is clear that a lot more can be lost if such developments continue to outpace the country's legal and regulatory capacity.
Thank you so much. That is quite telling. You have heard from the forensic expert explaining how it is hard that even some of these banking players do lose money through fraud. It's so interesting that we have to handle such a topic, and of course save consumers by empowering you to know exactly what you should do to avoid such fraud. Mr. Chimera, over to you. Let us hear you out on this next video and your analysis.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Kato, and all our viewers. That shows you the magnitude. And like I was saying, that with the different policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks in place, there is also a need of institutional, fully-fledged institutions that are well coordinated. You'll find that some of these aspects, the infrastructure that is facilitating all the digital transactions has got a different regulator. The service of the financial services have got a different regulator. Then the different products that banks come up with, the mobile money companies come up with, even the other private sector companies come up with like apps to give loans, are also managed by, mainly you'll find that the financial sector has got more than 4 regulators. Bank of Uganda, looking at financial institutions that are keeping funds, and then you'll find at a certain threshold, then you'll find that they are microfinance institutions of a certain threshold that have got also their different regulator. Then you'll go to the insurance sector, which has got also its other regulator. Like the expert was saying that some do not have the capacity. You'll find that the Financial Financial Intelligence Authority is another regulator. So this is where I was looking at that the financial sector or financial services sector need coordination to look into how all these unscrupulous aspects are rolling, and who ends up to be the victim is the consumer. Like earlier mentioned, and it has come up very clearly in that last clip, and this is where we said we are going to more look at the risks. You'll find that the major risk, like one was saying, we have got the insecure, unreliable infrastructure, which continuously gets disrupted. Just imagine when I've been a victim one time also, due to the poor inconsistency of the networks. You will find that globally we are all suffering from the glitch that happened with the Microsoft network, with one of the biggest suppliers, where you are in UK, Heathrow, and I think Gatwick and other airports have not yet got back into system fully, all their back-end system, but they have got a backlog. So you will find that this infrastructure is very key. And at times, this is where the risks come in, and we will need to make sure that as countries in different African countries and globally, the infrastructure glitches, the inconsistencies in networks need to be addressed to make sure that consumers get good quality services. The other aspects that need to, thank you very much, Dennis, for bringing that. The other aspects you'll find at the end of all this, having gone through this global technical glitch, there are lots of fraud and scams. And this is where this series now we are going to hold with regards to digital finance, we will need to address and make sure that these scams and fraud that affect us through our daily aspects, apart from financial, apart from travel, like even healthcare, finance, they need to be having secure and backup. I was listening in where different experts were saying, in a modern world today, how can such huge corporates just back on one supplier of that service? So looking at aspects of looking at plan B, putting safety measures in place will be very key. You'll find at the end of this global tech outrage that a lot of data misuse might have taken place. But if apart from this global outrage, in all these aspects, the other risk, like I've said, of insecure and unreliable infrastructure, which we need to solidify, aspects to do with fraud and schemes, the aspect of data misuse is another worry. Look at the first video we were looking at, one misusing your data, asking you to put in this so that they can get your password. So the schemer was asking the consumer to put in their, to put in those digits so that they can open up that system and they access the password and withdraw the money. So these are some of the risks that we need as different players and regulators to make sure that we continuously sensitize, as earlier was mentioning, the different elements we need after the laws or the frameworks, the coordination, carrying out investigations, doing surveillance, and coming up with different crime protection measures. One of the other most important would be doing a lot of awareness. Doing a lot of consumer awareness is going to be very key. But as we are looking at all these risks, some other major risks is lack of transparency. Consumers are losing trust when they go in to complain. There isn't a transparent way of complaining. It can be on piece of paper, but when they start following the system, it becomes so complex for them that they are tossed like a ping pong ball, and they end up losing trust due to lack of transparency and lack of taking responsibility. They don't want to take on liability for their wrongs. This is affecting consumers, and this is an aspect that we need in the digital digital finance for institution, business operators, service providers to be transparent. Consumers get frustrated by the non-transparency and the complexity designed in there to hide the wrongs. So this is a major risk. And then the aspects like what leads to untransparency and complexity leads to lack of redress. Like you were saying earlier, somebody does a small mistake and money is misdirected. Somebody passes on and leaves the money behind. The families don't get redress due to the non-transparent or the complex system. They have to go through, get letters of administration, go and do this, go and do that. Then they end up not accessing the resources. All these leads to consumers losing trust in something that would have been viable. Then other aspect, which is a major risk still that we are measuring on and we need to continuously look at, is the lack of the effective. You know, countries can have consumer protection mechanisms, but their lack of implementation makes them to be limited or wanting. Then thereby, consumers would continuously complain. They will not get redress because the consumer protection mechanisms are left hanging, and the consumers end up in despair, losing trust. The digital ecosystem has got a lot of potential. We'll appreciate where we were lining up, we no longer line up. Where we would have taken hours to go to a financial service, to go to an insurance company, now we sit and just use our smartphones, use our laptops to get all those services. Unfortunately, by sitting comfort is making us more vulnerable at times. Like people say that experiences got over years, but now in this decade, experiences got by damage. We get damaged and then we get experience. We get losses, we get experiences. So, but it will be very key to strengthen the consumer protection mechanisms to avert the risks. The last aspect that we need to look at, and as we might go into another video, is we need to invest. If we were investing little money, as we need to invest more money in financial literacy than we are doing in marketing. Because once you market to an illiterate consumer, there are many ripple effects. Like I mentioned earlier, consumers might end up over-indebted because they will continuously go and borrow due to lack of financial literacy.
There. Yes. There. That is a good one there from you. You are very right. We must invest as a people, but also as bodies, as NGOs, but also as governments. We must invest in consumer financial literacy. People must be aware. It's one thing to be educated and another to know about finance, about protection. My sister, who has a degree in accountancy, one of my elder sisters, who has a degree in accountancy, she's an accountant somewhere in Rakai district, works for government. She lost over $1 million through fraud online on mobile money. Oh, this is an accountant, an auditor, who should know the basics, but she still fell a victim. Now, it means that even when you're educated, you can still be a victim of fraud. I lost money, both online on mobile money, but also through emails. Yet, I was at the law school at that time studying a master's looking at financial issues, because my master's degree is on commerce, international commerce. And I was looking at banking in Uganda, all this money laundering, but still, I lost through fraud. Yet I was actually in between studying cybercrime. So it means that all of us, in one way or another, must be guarding ourselves. This information we are giving is so important to know exactly in which way do we lose money. Then let us have a look at this and more. If you have any other video left, let us have it. Let us have it as we move towards the conclusion. Mr. Kimera, can go ahead and explain. Now, let us have this video before we come to this.
As more financial transactions become electronic, cyber criminals have also become more sophisticated and are now targeting individuals and large financial organizations.
Every day that goes by, either individuals, institutions, corporate institutions, as well as some bank institutions, face cyber attacks. And these attacks are enhanced by SIM card, by phones.
According to the police crime report released this week, 222 cyber-related cases were investigated in 2020, some of which involved huge electronic financial transactions.
Institutions don't even report their attacks, the fraud that has been orchestrated onto them. Because some of these institutions are service institutions. It takes pain, for example, for a banker to report.
The 2020 crime report cites 11 billion shillings, which was fraudulently siphoned out of the country through mobile money accounts and 2 commercial banks.
I think the latest and the high-profile case of cyber attack was involving one of the aggregators in town, that is Pegasus. It is the aggregator of several banks and telecommunication companies, where we lost close to 12 billion. It was 11 billion point something.
Twine cites a senior government official whom he declined to name, who lost over 100 million shillings through cybercrime.
There was an advert for a promotion and he did an interview. Then somebody came and warned him that for you to be through, you need to part up with 100 million.
The government ministry also reported it had lost billions of shillings to a foreign country after government accounts were hacked into.
Actually, it was almost successful, but one of their IT experts was able to detect it, and he intercepted that money when it had already left the country.
Twine explains how mobile money accounts are being duplicated to steal money from unsuspecting Ugandans.
Especially the national IDs. Now, the moment you submit your national ID for photography, for photocopy, this person, the photocopier with fraudulent intentions, will create a situation whereby he will communicate to you that the first copy was faulty and he puts it in a dustbin. The criminals come, because it's a syndicate, they come, pick this stuff, which was showed to you as if it's rubbish, they make it clear and have it used for registration.
For example, on online systems, you have the propensity and the ability to mask your identity through proxy handles. So instead of introducing your real handle, your real name, for example, and your identity on internet-connected platforms, you carry the ability to go anonymous and present your name as a different entity altogether. The link sometimes is broken or it's redirecting you to another site. The link doesn't have a padlock on it. What do those things mean when you interact with an online platform? So because of this lack of awareness and absence of awareness on some of the ways in which you see an ordinary citizen can protect themselves, they fall prey to some of these scams by the criminals. And criminals use the same old tricks to be able to reach out to people.
The financial intelligence experts say banks and telecom companies are the worst hit by electronic cybercrime.
It's the banks, and just that actually most of the time they never disclose these things, but there's a lot of cyber criminals that target banks. So some of the things are covered and they never come to the media.
The 2020 crime report also cites about $4 million US, approximately 15 billion Uganda shillings, that got lost through cross-border online fraud, online business fraud, internet fraud, email hacking, fake visas, and bank fraud. The experts have a set of advice to deal with the problem.
Train our police because they're investigators of the things. Some of them are not very, very well knowledgeable with technology and how this thing happens.
And looking at the inside job requires you to look at the employees that you have a good cyber security policy that directs and guides on who is supposed to access which levels on your system, in that you can be able to spot a red flag when an employee that is not supposed to access a certain level of the system hasn't followed the protocol. So some of these things can help you to, to pacify some of those threats that are inside the system.
Jingo Francis, NTV.
Thank you so much. That was a good one, Dennis. Thank you so much for showcasing that one. And of course, Mr. Chimera, thank you so much for sharing that insight. Now, you have heard it from the experts. And actually, even the banks are most hit. Even the players themselves fall victims. And I've heard how your information is lost because you may have your ID, but someone else is also having your same ID, is transacting under your name. Now, how do you protect that? Ensure that wherever you go to photocopy, you already have your copy, for example. That when I'm going to do a transaction, I take my copy. I don't risk giving it to someone. And if someone says it's faulty, you give it to me. And I was doing that for a long time. When I go to photocopy and we say, oh, it's damaged, I say, give it to me. I keep it because someone is going to use it and then you are going to be a criminal without realizing that you're a criminal because someone is working in your name. Now we have just known how people register under other people's names and then do cyber terrorism. Mr. Chimera, as we wind up, we have 6 minutes. I want to give you 5 minutes. Give us your insights and of course your parting shot, and then we shall call it a day.
Yes.
Over to you, Mr. Chimera.
I'm going to combine everything and make sure that today's videos tell you, and they go back to the elements that I had mentioned earlier, to say that we need legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks. Like you've heard, we need to train. The revolution, or what they call the fourth industrialization of digitalization, the Internet of Things, continuously evolves. So we need to build our capacities from the duty bearers, going into regulations, institutions as the regulators, competent authorities, business service providers, and as the consumers. We need financial literacy. We need safeguards and awareness. That is very key. The element of coordination is going to be very key. Coordination with duty bearers, coordination with financial or service providers, coordination with the consumers when they complain, so that all the duty bearers, the businesses, use this data to do some effectiveness. Aspects to continuously investigate, do surveillance, track, and monitor is going to be very key. The aspects of financial literacy, consumer awareness, not only consumers, service providers, regulators, and policymakers need to be sensitized to make sure that the vagaries, the unscrupulous, do not take away the benefits of the digital ecosystems, its mutual benefits to improving our lives, providing our needs, making sure that we have got more inclusivity, not discrimination, to bring in the vulnerable, to benefit from the benefits of the digital ecosystem. All of these need each one of us to play a role, but the biggest role starts with governance, starts with policy, starts with legal frameworks, regulation, and institutions. I would like to end by saying that consumers, we are a very powerful force. We can change the challenges in the digital sector. We can change the challenges in the financial sector. We can change the challenges in any sector if we speak up and if we raise the issues affecting us. Once we speak up as a force, we can change towards safe, sustainable, and equitable digital systems that protect our privacy, that make us live a more resilient life, and through our behavior change, we can make a difference. Let us not gain experience through damage. Let us gain experience, even if it is through damage, but it leads to a better world where consumers, we are accessing digital services, but when things affect us, we have got redress mechanisms. We need to continuously advocate for secure and reliable infrastructure. We need to advocate against fraud and scams. We need to advocate for strong consumer regulations, protection, and that are responsive. So with all that, we can now start benefiting the benefits of the digital ecosystem that will give us mutual benefits in all that we are doing, and we live a resilient future. As consumers, we are the biggest socioeconomic force that can turn around anything that is going wrong when we are informed. So I would like to thank you for listening in at this second in the series. We look forward to next weekend or next Saturday, when we will be discussing still the vagaries in the digital finance and also bring out the positives. If we are sensitized and we're strong, we will need to look at all these things from a social, political, economic, legal and technological aspects. And if possible, we look for alternatives. But those alternatives must come into through awareness. Thank you very much for listening in, and thank you, Humanist TV, Kato, Dennis, and all your colleagues, wherever they are operating from, and all of you, the listeners and viewers of Humanist TV Africa. Thank you very much.
You have been a great host. You have been a great panelist, and of course, a teacher here at Humanist TV Africa. We want to thank you so much, Mr. Chimera, for always making time to appear here and share and teach and guide our audience. They are always enthusiastic, looking forward to watching your next show. I want to thank so much Mr. Dennis Bongole in the studio, and of course the entire team that shares our shows on our Facebook handle. We had a glitch with our YouTube this week. We shall be back with our YouTube live next week. And I want to thank you so much for those who share, like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you so much. It has been a wonderful show. We're talking about financial service sector and how we must take charge of it and avoid being victims of cyber crime. We shall continue with this in the next series. See you in the next series, and of course, take care. Keep your hope alive.
Bye-bye.